You understand that the cabinet has been dissolved on Tuesday and the governor is going to go ahead and forge on with administration and government. We've still got some reactions coming through. This morning, we're joined by Ima Nsa Adegoke, who is a Labour Party governorship candidate in that election. Thank you for coming this morning.
Good morning.
Well, yes, indeed, you issued a statement, and a whole lot has been said. We've got other governorship candidates, they've been here and gone. Are you still insisting on some of the issues you raised at the time?
Well, I do believe it was a state party that issued the release.
Okay.
But with respect to the issues that were referred to me, I do stand by that in the sense that we had a situation where 2 days before the election, someone came up to me and said, the information was that since I had thought or constituted myself as some kind of challenge, as it were, to the PDP, then the decision, that's the way it was, the decision or intention was to ensure that I wasn't going to come second or third. In fact, I was going to be fourth, and I just laughed, so that I would not, be in any position to challenge if I was second or something. So I laughed, and I did mention it to one or two party members who were around. So, and of course, we go into the election. With all due respect, I know I did a lot of work. For those who are on ground, they know that basically I was the one visible opposition that PDP was particularly concerned about, because I know that I did a lot of work, grassroots work. I didn't go into the campaign presumptuous in any way. And so when the elections came up, and of course the results were announced, of course you had that situation where indeed I was supposed to be in the same position. I said, well, this is interesting. I know on the day of the elections a lot of issues had risen, which were brought to my notice. Some of them were brought to my notice, some of them were brought to the party officials' notice. The ones I could deal with, I dealt with. The ones I couldn't deal with, I didn't deal with. So after the elections, actually, my ward chairman had, when we were talking, said to me and said, well, in fact, a night before, in the village where I wasn't, and I had not told him anything about the conversation I'd had, that the same thing was said to him. Well, that your madam thinks she's very tough or whatever. Well, let me tell you, she's not going to be second or third, So I said to myself, okay, that's interesting. It's my first foray into politics anyway. So, but when issues now pally, you begin to wonder and you say to yourself, well, there is something else that definitely is happening. And of course, when you combine all that with the information you got on the election day, you begin to wonder. But with respect to that aspect, I do stand by it, because that was what happened.
But that's going to be kind of tough to prove in the court process, isn't it?
That's the issue. You see, I happen to be a lawyer, so it's a question of proof, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
The issue with respect to court or no court is not my decision to make anyway. It's the decision of the party. I mean, we all have to sit down and look at, the pros and the cons and all of that. But my concern really, on the legal point of view, is the abridgement of time. This issue I had raised specifically at the stakeholders meeting, where Professor Jega was present and Mike Guinea and all other stakeholders. This issue was not just raised by myself, it was raised by all the political parties except PDP. The issue of the abridgement of time, what the Electoral Act states, and why was, in fact, I remember particularly I was irked by the fact that Professor Jega said that they were compelled to abridge the time. And if I remember my words correctly, I said, well, I don't understand why you can say to us you were compelled. You're either compelled by reason of force or you're compelled by ignorance. And I would want to say it would be ignorance of the law, the statute that sets you up as a commission. Now, if you look at the fact that April 14th was brought out December last year as the election date for Cross River State, now the Supreme Court decision came on 27th or so of January. Now, if the Supreme Court decision says 90 days, 14th of April still stands well within the 90 days. Now, Bayelsa elections went on the day it was supposed to be because that was already fixed. Adamawa, I believe, and Cross River State were the ones that, now got abridged. Particularly for Cross River State, that was horrible because now from December you've made a projection as a party. We're not the ruling party. We don't have access to security votes and all sorts of funds. Now, you have made a projection, you've made your plans, you've made, as it were, you expect where your source of income is coming from, because your source of income is not government, it's private, whether personal or through donations. Now, all those projections are in place, and then suddenly you say to a people that you're compelled to abridge the time from 14th of April, and you're bringing it to 25th of February. You're taking out almost 7 weeks out of the program, and you're saying to opposition party, in fact he went on to say, I think we're saving you money, because one of the parties said, well, we have to, Sourcing said he thinks he's saving us money. It's not for him to think he's saving us money, it's for him to do what the law says he should do. Now, the INEC is set up by statute, and the Constitution does say that they would conduct elections according to the Electoral Act. So it's not according to JGA's timetable, it's not according to compulsion.
What did he stipulate at the time? What were they supposed to have done?
Well, there's a timetable under the Electoral Act. First of all, you're supposed to give nothing less, political parties are supposed to give to INEC nothing less than 60 days. Their candidates and all of that. They had actually brought out a timetable. So the 8th of February was the last day for primaries to hold. So now you come out maybe on the 2nd of February or thereabouts, and you're saying there's a new timetable. And yet you don't adjust every other timetable you're supposed to have under the law. Now we have the 8th of February, they still stuck to that. Candidates, one or two things. Then, most importantly, there were other issues they were supposed to do, which I brought up with him at that stakeholders forum. One, you're supposed to do a review of the voters list. You're supposed to publish it. You're supposed to let us know. For example, our base are women and the youths, and we know we did a lot of work with them, and they constitute a large majority of the voting population. Now you're telling me that young persons who turned 18 from April last year till today have been disenfranchised, and you don't have an idea of how many. Now, when I brought up that issue, said, well, they did review in Bayelsa, they did review, but we're talking about Cross River State. We're not talking about what you did in other states.
Do you believe that you would have had, assuming you had been given that time, the elections had held in April as earlier scheduled,
yes,
would you have been able to make any huge impact, considering that you're pretty new in this area? I mean, all you had to do was go through some of the analysis in the papers as to the standing of the candidates. And did you like your analysis? I would first of all ask you that. Did you ever get to see it? To be honest with you, I didn't see all the papers. My press assistant would just do some clips and give it to me and all of that. And yes, the one thing was I was new. But then there were also analysis that said I had done a lot of work, grassroots work. Did you believe that as a new candidate, you could have been able to break the ceiling and take the power with
Trust me, if we had April 14, we had the whole of March, we would have done it. We're talking about 18 local government areas. Last year, in 6 weeks, I covered 14 local government areas. So if I had another 6 weeks, I'd be doing a revisit. I'd be doing a lot of work. And you must realize that I didn't go to sleep between last year and this year. I was visible. I was doing a lot of humanitarian work, which I had come across, in my first foray, visiting. I'd come across a lot of, really horribly women that were left to just basically fend for themselves. And these were widows we're talking about, over 40,000 of them spread across 18 local government areas. I had that compassion to work with them. So it wasn't as if I sat down, I was just waiting for the next year to come out. Now, I wasn't doing politics, yes, but at least I was touching lives, which is what I saw when I was campaigning last year. A lot of misgovernance that had affected the rural people and left them in penury. And that is why the politics of inducement can prosper.
That presupposition of yours, that assuming you had this much time to campaign, also presupposes some faith in the electoral body to be able to conduct elections fairly.
No, it's not just that. It does put us on a situation where we do not have to do a high jump or a poll vote. We are certain we have done our bit, then we can rest. Now, when you abridge time and you don't give us the opportunity, because between the 8th and the 25th, you're talking about less than 14 days. When you are confirmed as a candidate, that is when you go out with confidence. That is when you're able to raise funds from other sources if you don't have enough. So we're talking about time for people to say, okay, I can assess this candidate. I think I can pitch my tent with him or her. That it takes time to do that. And that comes from when you're doing a lot of campaign, when people are seeing the effect of your campaign, they are able to assess, feedback comes from the populace. That is where you come in. And then also as a candidate, it gives you a lot of confidence to say, okay, listen, in this area, in this area, in this area, I'm going to put my foot down. You could never have won because I did this, I did this, I did this. So these are the issues we're talking about. You cannot afford to take out time from campaign. There is no democracy. There's no nation where you give 2 weeks to people to campaign for governorship candidates.
Okay, for you said sometime last year you covered 14 local government areas.
Yes.
You did a lot of grassroots
Yes.
work and all that. But those who believe that you not you in person, but your party in Cross River State had no place whatsoever, because for over time the ruling party had been there and had been affecting the lives of the people. So there was no way the people would have gone away to vote for another party.
Well, if there was no way the people would have gone away, can you please explain to me why women voters in the rural areas were threatened, intimidated not to vote for the Labour Party? Can someone tell me why in certain areas they were actually paid money not to vote for the Labour Party? Now, listen, if your government have been in power, you've been in power basically 14 years, and you're confident, why induce the populace? If you're sure your works will speak for you, as they should.
So your party saw this happen?
Pardon?
Your party
yes, I got the calls. The issue is I was in Cricktown, which is my own area, voting, and I have calls from women from all over the place. Some of our female polling agents were harassed out of the place when coordinating agents went to them.
Do you have pictures of this?
The coordinating agents in 2 instances, Anikom and Obubra, who took pictures of it, the policeman on duty actually took it from him, deleted it, and actually asked him to pay 1,000 naira to retrieve his phone back.
Wait a minute, he deleted a picture on his phone?
Yes, what he had taken from his phone, and actually asked him to pay 1,000 naira to get his phone back. This happened in Ikom. I mean, there were instances. Our coordinator in Bekwara, for example, couldn't stay in Bekwara. He had to run away to Ogoja because they were looking for him. From the previous day, he had called me and said, okay, the SSS people called him and said he should bring party list of executives. And I said, that's not the business of the SSS. So I called the assistant director, in Calabar, and he said, okay, leave it with me. I'll look into it. So obviously he must have, I presume he must have called maybe his people there, because they went back to him and said, okay, sorry, we're just asking, so that, we just know, how you want to work or something like that. So I said, okay, fine. But the next day, he's been sought, he's been hunted, and he basically had to leave Ogoja. He wasn't there, and he's supposed to be the returning, at least the party's returning officer at the collating center in the local government. He didn't get back home until Sunday night, because when they looked for him and they didn't see him, they actually arrested 2 of our agents in Bekwara there and handed them over to the police, and they didn't release them until the next morning, Sunday morning. So some of these things are there, but the issue, I guess, preempting you would be, whom did we report to, or what did we do? The issue is, okay, for example, there were certain numbers that were given to us at the stakeholders forum as a hotline of complaint for INEC. I know I personally, when especially the lady, one of the women leaders in Akpabio, called me frantically that some PDP boys, young men, had actually harassed her, intimidated her. They would come in, when they go in, and they say, who do you want to vote for? She said, Labour Party. No, you can't vote for Labour Party. You can't come into this booth and all that. So she called me because they had my number. And, and I was like, okay, fine. Which polling unit exactly are you? Because it would help. I tried to call those numbers personally. They didn't go through. One was picked up by a lady who didn't seem to have an idea as to, what the number was supposed to be, because I wrote it down personally. Now, okay. I also sent security persons to go there, but, the outcome of that, I don't know.
But all these notwithstanding, how did your campaign go? Did you have your agents in all the polling booths or wards?
Now, that's another issue. Now, part of the requirements of the INEC regulation or law or mandatory is that parties will submit polling agents list. Now, we were told to submit that, but again, because of time, many, in fact, as at the stakeholders forum which came up on a Wednesday before the Saturday, Mike Igini had said that not one of the political parties had actually submitted all agents for all the polling units. Now, if you're looking at a situation where a candidate has to go into an election, the candidate needs not just agents, but agents they can trust, agents who won't sell out, which is usually the norm, especially in the rural areas. Now, in as much as you do have party members all over the state, and you have asked, submit to me, for in our case, what we did in January said, give us a list of 3 agents at least, and let's look at them in the course of time and see who will be best suited to be the particular agent who would sign. Now, before we could do this, because of course in the process you have to release a lot of money to people. There's some people you put just a little amount of money in them and they go into voicemail. I mean, you can't get them anymore. So this is the proof of who, and that time was required for us to specifically come down to who would be who. Now, as at 8th, we get this, or rather, but as at the 2nd, we get this high jump. We cannot decode or decipher or sift, the best of agents we would have. However, even in spite of all that, we still tried to submit an agents list in almost all the local government areas except Akampa, where we really didn't have a presence we thought we were comfortable with. Now, some of these agents lists, in fact, we were, I think we were given some, INEC actually brought the forms to the office about a week or so prior to this time, and we needed to fill this, we needed to capture images. Now look at Cross River State. Cross River State is a state where it takes you 7 hours to travel from Calabar to the farthest point. It's 2 states in one. There are rural areas that traverse in one local government 2 hours from one end to the other. Now tell me how you're going to get 2,283 polling agents across these far-flung areas within that short period of time. So even though we did send in some, we didn't have all of them, like I have said. And then in not having all of them, you still needed to know who you could trust. Now that was a problem in itself.
Okay. So loyalty came into play for you. Did gender also have anything to do with this?
In what way?
In any way, did you feel like you had not been treated well, or did you think that you did not stand a chance because you're a woman?
I don't think I wouldn't stand a chance, because I wouldn't waste my money if I don't think I'd stand a chance. And I am not one to look at the issue of gender, because I do believe sincerely that excellence can never be placed on the altar of race, religion, sex or tribe. I offer excellence, and that's what I believed, and that's what I still believe.
All right, then what's the next line of action for you now, or for the party?
Well, like I said, it would be the party that will take the decision.
Okay.
But I know that there are issues that were filed prior to the election. I know 1 or 2 political parties did go to court to challenge the abridgement of time. Right. So with that already set, and with whatever may be done or decision may be taken by the party thereafter, well, we'll just wait to see.
And you do well to notify all concerned on this matter?
Oh, definitely.